long-standing proposal of the BJP. The stage was set in term 1 and it even made it to the manifesto of the party. In term 2, with a bigger mandate, the ruling party is pushing once more for one nation, one poll or simultaneous elections. And this proposal is being pushed even harder. At an all-party meet, the idea for one nation, one election was put forward. 7 opposition parties have skipped the meet, which include the Congress, BSP, Trinamool Congress and Samajwadi Party. The proposal is to hold elections for the Lok Sabha and the Assembly at the same time, along with local body elections as well. The idea is that this would save costs and ensure governments are not always in campaign mode. Some fear this will impact democracy in India and lead to an advantage to national parties over regional parties. Are these fears justified? And how feasible is the idea of one nation, one poll? Joining us on the debate to speak on this now is former Chief Election Commissioner Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, Chaitanya Kalbag, columnist and senior journalist, Syed Zafar Islam, national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and Lanka Dinakar, spokesperson of the TDP. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Kalbag, let me begin by getting in your view on the debate. Of course, there have been very clear sides, but do you think this time round with a bigger mandate, the BJP is in a position to push one step closer to simultaneous polls?
They certainly are closer to pushing the concept of simultaneous elections, but whether it's going to get enough support from all the parties in our country is a big question. The Law Commission's report that was submitted at the end of August last year, which is a draft report, suggests several constitutional amendments that need to be carried out before we move down this path. And I think it's a debate that's been going on for quite a while. The pros and the cons are quite clear by now. And I don't believe that it's going to be easy at all to hold simultaneous elections the way we are structured right now. Because even within the Law Commission's report, there are all kinds of caveats, including the fact that we have possible scenarios with no confidence motions, budgetary defeats, by-elections, mid-term elections with a hung parliament or a hung assembly, and so on. So every time you've got to move the legislation back or forward, especially if the extension of terms of legislatures and parliament are brought into this mix, it becomes an extremely complicated situation. But as far as the merits of holding a simultaneous election are concerned, there's no question that the Indian voter is wise enough to exercise her franchise in a very, very emancipated way. And we've seen this again this time, for example, in Odisha, where simultaneous elections have been held a few times now, and the patterns of voting for both the state assembly as well as their Lok Sabha seats is quite unlike one another, and people have been very good at picking their local representatives and their national representatives. So I don't believe that it's a given that this is going to tip the scales in favor of 1 or 2 or 3 parties. We should be giving the voter more credit for using their imagination, and their wisdom. But I think the constitutional part of it is going to become very daunting, and my fear is that it will preoccupy Parliament to a huge degree when there is far more urgent reform that needs to be carried out by the 17th Lok Sabha.
That, of course, it will dominate Parliament because regional parties largely are not keen. Of course, the BJD today has said that it supports it in principle. The TDP also sent a representative to the meet, and we'll ask Mr. Dinkar what he thinks about it. Let me, before that, come to Dr. Qureshi. Dr. Qureshi, what are the hiccups in pushing this forward? One concern whenever this topic comes up for discussion has been that even though elections in India are constantly on, so parties and governments are constantly in election mode, it also keeps them on their toes. Because you have to make sure that you have the people's best interests at heart Otherwise, you get an answer fairly quickly in the next set of elections. For example, you've had a massive mandate now in the Lok Sabha in 2019. Now, by the time the Maharashtra elections come on, the BJP as a ruling party is still going to be on its toes because it wants to ensure that it has a victory in Maharashtra as well.
Yes, this is a proposal which has strong merits and strong demerits as well. Of course, among the merits which I mentioned, that the cost will come down, the normal functioning of the government and the administrative machinery which is affected, that will also be taken care of. But in fact, there is another merit in the proposal which they don't mention, but I would like to mention that when you are in the election mode, communalism and casteism and corruption are at their worst. And when we are in the election mode, we are in the mode of communalism, casteism almost all the time. So therefore, not having frequent elections will be a good idea. However, the other arguments are equally valid. That as you mentioned, the accountability. There is a common perception that many members of parliament or Vidhan Sabha, they don't show up their faces for 5 years after winning the election. There's a common complaint. At least because of frequent elections, they have to keep going back to the electorate, which will increase their accountability. Secondly, the local issues and national issues are different. They should not be allowed to be mixed up because both issues are very important for the voters. And of course, I would like to say that election also creates work opportunities for hundreds of thousands of people. Estimated that 60,000 crores were spent in the last election. Obviously, this is a recirculation of the money among the poor. So these are some of the advantages. So we require a political consensus before we move forward.
Zafar Islam, are you looking any closer to that political consensus? 7 parties boycotted the meet today. Some are very clearly against the idea of simultaneous polls, and it doesn't look like they're going to come around anytime soon. So is this going to remain a pipe dream for the BJP even in term 2?
Well, Tamanna, let me very honestly say that this was initiated by the Honorable Prime Minister because he feels that this becomes a bottleneck to whatever growth, ambition, aspiration the government, whether it's the state government or the central government has, purely because every now and then we have election in the country and we will always end up having this model code of conduct which restricts you from doing many things which is important for the developmental activities. So his thought actually comes from that the government loses the opportunity, and at the end of the day, who suffers? The people of this country, and the country suffers. So it is an initiative, and he is encouraging time and again and inviting people to have this debate because it is important to have this kind of debate because country needs it. And all this apprehension what the regional parties have absolutely baseless because we have seen recently, as somebody had also pointed out, in Odisha where the simultaneous election had happened, and you see who won the election. It was definitely something which they need to examine because if they have won the confidence of people, they will definitely will be voted in power and not routed out at they are claiming. So it is important because it saves cost. It restricts you from it doesn't restrict you from all the developmental activities. It ensures that people's aspiration and whatever expectation they have, that is being delivered on time, and definitely it will help purely because only the people, not the political party. How does it matter? I mean, we are already in 17, 18 states, and we are confident of winning more. So how does it matter? It doesn't matter even if we have to sacrifice, but if it does become a reality, it will change the shape of the country, and whatever we aspire, what the Honorable Prime Minister have time and again stated about the new India, this is something which needs to be delivered for the new India to really shape up well.
No, it will definitely change the shape of the country, but will it be for the better is the question. Now, the other state where simultaneous polls are held are in Andhra Pradesh, and the TDP had to face that this time round. It didn't work out very well for you, Mr. Dinkar. But you have attended, your party has attended the meeting today. What is your position on simultaneous polls?
We had welcomed the basic idea of one nation, one election reform in our election system subject to the existing constitutional obligations. One nation, one election is very good idea and got momentum after 2015 due to the Modi's strong approach to save a time and cost of the election expenditure to the exchequer of our nation. B. Remove unnecessary barriers in the governance due to the frequent elections which suffers general public from the government services due to the election code. C. Government human resources are frequently diverting for election process, service delivery mechanism adversely impacting. These are all the things we should be get into notice, and that's why we support it. But as far as the challenges are concerned, it should be get addressed. The constitutional amendments are required for A. What about the unexpired period of the existing state and central governments if simultaneous polls happens? That is one thing which should be get addressed and constitutional amendment required. And then after completion of simultaneous poll, what about the dissolution of any state government or union government after conducting one nation and one election? These are practical constraints which should be get addressed. Apart from these, getting consensus is very important for one nation and one election among all the political parties, most particularly newly government formed regional parties in various states may not give their consent, they may not cooperate to.
No, you've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head. Everyone will say, in theory, I like the idea, but the moment a party feels that its term will get cut short, and someone's will, because you'll have to start the clock from somewhere, there will be the question about why should my term be reduced. Zafar Islam had a point where he wanted to come in. Yes. Yes, Mr. Islam.
See, as I said earlier, that we are in power in several states, and when we are encouraging people to debate because we think this is important for the country, we will have to sacrifice as well. I mean, it's not that we don't have to sacrifice, and we don't know whether the remaining period we will come back into power or not is something which only the electorate will decide. But yet, as we had pushed for GST, we will continue to push for legislation which changes which is important and necessary for the development of the country, and which is in the interest of the people of this country and for the nation.
So, the Prime Minister has decided to form a panel on the one nation, one election proposal. It's not clear if opposition parties or a lot of them will be in the panel, possibly not, considering their current situation. But there are going to be some very, very tricky situations which will have to be addressed first. Mr. Qureshi, why don't you come in on this? Because like I said, you'll have to reset the clock from somewhere. So you say that, okay, 2019 would be the next, after 2019, 2024 would be the next simultaneous elections. That means what happens to those parties or those governments which have by then served like a 2-year term or a 1.5-year term?
Yeah, as mentioned that half the state will have to curtail their term, in the other half it has to be prolonged, and that will be problematic. And secondly, I would like to say that the original proposal was that all 3 tiers of election should be held at the same time. It means Panchayat, the Vidhan Sabha and the Parliament. Now, along the way, we have stopped talking of Panchayat altogether, so that is a dilution of the proposal. Now, Niti Aayog said that, okay, if you can't hold it once in 5 years, let us do it twice in 5 years. That is a further dilution. Now, what is left? 2,000 MLAs and 543 MPs. After such a dilution, what is left in the proposal? Then we have to see whether the whole struggle and all jugglery is worth its while. And also, we have seen that in the last couple of years, even the normal simultaneous elections got staggered, and nobody protested. So, therefore, exactly what is the moral authority of the proposal? That is something which needs to be answered.
Okay. Chaitanya, where do you come in on the concerns that regional parties have? And you made it very clear that voters are sensible enough to distinguish when they are voting for their state government or when they are voting for their central government. But do you think that the might and the power that national parties, for example, are able to put into their election programs and campaigns would somewhere or the other land them an advantage? The other fear is that we are going to move more and more towards a presidential style of elections and politics. And let's talk about it in the context of the just concluded polls we've seen.
Well, Tamanna, I think the bigger unknown and something that I worry about a lot is the how voters are influenced. I think you referred to that just now. What is going to happen in terms of social media and spending power and so on is a huge factor in this. And the BJP had far more funds and resources than any other party in this election, and it's only going to grow now. What I'm more worried about is one party rule, not so much presidential rule. If we are going to head towards a one party system in this country, that's extremely bad for democratic functioning. We need an active opposition in parliament, we need a strong opposition, and we need state governments that are independent enough in their attitude to economic reform and administration to keep the country running in all its diversity. But if you start to have the same command system from Delhi to all the state capitals in terms of the system of governance and so on, you're not going to get much joy in this. And I think that's what I'm alarmed about. Although I heard the BJP representative say just now that that they are quite they're willing to sacrifice some advantages in some states. The fact remains that there is a massive advantage to the BJP as it stands right now with its massive national organization, its cadre, and its most important, its social media and propaganda machinery, as well as its funding.
Zafar Islam, you want to come in on that? I mean, I know you're sounding generous.
Can I just respond?
Yeah, but you have, you're sounding generous saying that we will also take a hit, but you have 18 states in your kitty. Not every party has that situation right now.
Well, when you weigh any option, any proposal, you will always have pros and cons. You have to see what is the best prospects instead of consequences. And it's not that we may not have evaluated everything, but yet we feel, as I said, in the interest of the nation. It's not that we have the advantage. Everyone has the advantage. In fact, when I say that we will have to sacrifice, we will have to give up in many states, and yet we will have to go for an election. But that is something which is important, and that needs to be done. But all the apprehension, I just heard, I don't know who is the person, but I heard him, all this apprehension is totally unwarranted, unsubstantiated, and is baseless, purely because BJP has power. BJP has power. We are strong. We are getting stronger. So you have issues with that. We are getting stronger every day because we are working towards that. We are winning the people's confidence. And when you say that it is not good for the democracy, so you are saying that in United States it's a presidential type of election, so it's not good for the democracy there, and it is still.
No, I said one party rule is not a good idea.
India is known for the democracy. No, it's only your apprehension. It's one party rule. Who knows how many party will win? In Telangana, who won? Did we win? Or Andhra Pradesh, did we win? It's somebody else won.
Okay.
We didn't win. We did get 303 seats in national election, but in the state we didn't do well. Whether it's Andhra Pradesh or for that matter Odisha.
No, but I don't know if Andhra Pradesh and Odisha are the best examples.
The advantage will have only those parties who have won the confidence of the people.
Let me rephrase this question. I don't know if Andhra Pradesh and Odisha are the best examples. If, for example, in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, if there were simultaneous elections instead of this 4-5 month time lag, would it have been a different situation? I'm going to take that question to Chaitanya first, because the premise that you've presented would
Can I respond to that?
Let me get Chaitanya's point of view, then I'll come to your response, Zafar Islam. Yes,
Sorry,
yes, Chaitanya.
yeah. Well, it's a given fact that Tamanna, that in both in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, the Congress's winning margins were very, very thin, and they got a decent majority only in Chhattisgarh. And interestingly, this Lok Sabha elections also reflected this to a large extent, because the Congress lost heavily in both Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, and they got, I think, 2 seats in Chhattisgarh. So the voting patterns actually didn't change that much. You could argue that if elections had been held simultaneously in those 3 states with the Lok Sabha election, perhaps there might have been a Congress government in Chhattisgarh in any event, and it would have been debatable whether the Congress would have been able to form governments in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan with their thin majorities, as they might not have got those thin majorities.
No, I mean, exactly.
But the fact is that I think the biggest factor that I see in this debate is the amount of time that it's taking up across the country now. The latest election spanned 7 weeks
not really.
or
Like
7 phases.
Rajnath Singh in a press conference after that meet has said that we're in no rush to do this by 2024. We formed a panel, we will build consensus. They said that in term 1 as well. So they're trying to build a case for it. I'm not sure it's going to take too much legislative time. So if that's a very real concern, the biggest.
No, what I meant was the number of phases that are elections are held over.
Yeah.
For example, when the next UP election comes, you can be quite sure that it will be spread over several phases.
Dr. Qureshi, do you want to respond to that? The practical concerns of it, yeah.
You have to answer the question, because I couldn't hear the audio of the panelists. What was the question? What is your question?
Chaitanya Kalbag is saying that another practical concern is how much time it will take. For example, in Uttar Pradesh, you are likely to see more phases this time round. Chaitanya, have I transmitted your question correctly?
Yeah. No,
Yes.
the question that there are too many phases and the election is prolonged, we have to see whether we can solve the problem by an alternative route without going to the process of simultaneous election. I would say, and I've said it in some articles now and then, that we can reduce the election from 3 months to just 33 days and in single phase, which will have its own benefit. If we have the central armed police forces in adequate numbers. So the only reason why we have to do multiple phase election is the loss of human lives, and every political party demands what is called paramilitary force, which is limited. If we can get more troops, more companies, we can do it in 1 day, which in any case is becoming necessary in a multi-phase election. In the age of social media, we find that the political discourse also become very bitter. The rumors go around, hate discourse, hate speech, all that is increasing in a prolonged election. So therefore, we should look at it from that route. Now, simultaneous election may or may not be feasible constitutionally, but at least reducing the duration of the election to 33 days is possible, doable. Just give me more forces and I'll do it.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing, that the amount of paramilitary force that you need to conduct free and fair elections across the country, can you really do it all together? You had to have large number of phases even for Lok Sabha elections for this very reason. So a lot of questions come to the fore. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the show, and we asked all of our followers on Twitter as well to weigh in. We asked them, do you think that simultaneous polls will be an advantage to the BJP? 58% of them say yes. But remember, tides turn, so it is a bigger question than which party seems on top today. With that, it's a wrap on the India development debate. But before we go, I just want to leave you with a small clip from Parliament today by Ramdas Athavale, an NDA ally who's also been a former UPA ally, wishing Rahul Gandhi today in Parliament. Well, at least you have to give him kudos for being honest about sensing which way the wind goes. Thank you for watching.
राहुल जी का बर्थडे आज है, राहुल जी का बर्थडे आज है। हाँ, तो मतलब राहुल जी को भी मतलब वो हमारे मित्र है और मतलब आपको वहाँ बैठने का मौका मिला, इसीलिए मैं आपको हार्दिक बधाई देता हूँ। आपने बहुत कोशिश की, मतलब लोकतंत्र में होता है कि भाई लोकतंत्र में तो जो लोग चाहते हैं उनकी सत्ता आती है। आपकी सत्ता बहुत साल तक रही, जब आपकी सत्ता थी मैं आपके साथ था। और चुनाव के पहले मुझे लोग कांग्रेस के बोल रहे थे कि भाई इधर आओ, लेकिन मैं बोला उधर जाकर मैं क्या करूं। मैंने हवा का रुख देखा था कि हवा नरेंद्र मोदी जी की तरफ जा रही है। और इसीलिए ठीक है, तो लोकतंत्र में होता है, मतलब आप लोगों ने भी कोशिश की, मोदी साहब ने कोशिश की, हमने भी कोशिश की।
Well, you have to give it to Ramdas Athavale, as at least he is brutally honest about figuring out which side is better and in a more stronger position. Well, with that, it's all the time we have on the India Development Debate. Thank you for watching.